Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Rethink Podcast. And I've got to be honest with you, we've been talking quite a while, just recapping the whole Tiger King phenomena, which is kind of a statement, I think, on
society today.
The health of our country.
Yeah.
When you can't think it gets any lower.
Yeah.
We make a hero.
I saw some meme that was like, Joe Exotic has coronavirus now. Now the two things that I think about all the time are one thing. And it's like, that is spot on.
Is that true?
Yeah, he's in like solitary confinement in prison because he's got coronavirus.
True fact.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that,
I don't
have a
segue.
transition out of
Yeah,
that. Hey, I was on the phone the other day with a friend of mine, Dave Runyon. Dave Runyon, you have all these list of credentials because you're like a big deal.
No, that's not the case. Really, nobody knows what I do, and I love it. That way, there's like no accountability.
Yeah.
So.
Including the people
no
that write your paychecks.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what he does.
Exactly.
No, Dave actually, we go back a few years. Dave is real involved in a whole neighboring movement.
Yeah, that's a good way to say
Yeah,
it.
just about the whole idea of the church actually taking serious this whole concept of loving your neighbor, which is one of the big two. Actually, it's connected to the number one: love God and love your neighbor, right? And you can't separate those. And
Man, I should write a book on that.
you should write a book on that, which he has done actually, followed up by this great paper on neighboring in COVID-19, and that's why I brought him here. So, Dave Runyon, tell, like, what's your official like title? Or I know that you work on the governor's clergy council, and so you do a lot of kind of interface between the faith community and the governor.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to that too, because one of the things I think is really, really important is that we pray for our leaders and our governor, our president. Again, politics aside, they're our leaders, right? And so I do want to come back to that. But so tell me in this whole neighboring kind of passion that you've had, especially for not just Denver, but I mean, you speak all over the place about trying to get people to get out of their comfort zone and actually love their neighbors. And tell me now what that's looked like in the past, and now how this COVID-19 is kind of like maybe changed the way, as we're all sheltering and things like that. And then I want to get to what you're seeing happening, or maybe what needs to happen in church world. How maybe we as believers who say it's important actually start doing it. So tell us about,
and then some bonus stuff on the Tiger King, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Okay. So let's do neighboring first though.
All right. And then there's some conspiracy theories that go back to that, because I think somehow it's all
connected.
All tied together.
It's all connected. I'm so excited. I heard there's another episode coming out.
One more.
Yeah.
One more.
One more. And then there'll be two.
Yeah. And then we're going to watch it just every day.
Yeah.
Which I'm down.
I already am.
Yeah.
I'm going to rewatch. Okay.
All right. So
Dave, let's get back to this. We're out of time. Thanks, sir.
Thanks for being here.
It's been great.
Yeah. And I just want everybody to notice that we're like 8 feet apart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're social distancing right now.
Yeah.
So,
because sometimes I notice you spit when you talk, and so that's why.
For sure.
Yeah. Nothing
For
personal.
Sure. Well, Jim, you've been preparing for this social distancing thing your whole life, so I just want to commend you. All the training of 40 whatever years, 50 years, it's all paying off.
Wait, it was your birthday. How old are you now?
I'm 58 years old.
Dang.
Are you really?
I am.
You know that if you cut your age in half, we would be the same age.
I love every bit of this. Okay,
go ahead, Dave.
So here we go.
If I cut my IQ in half, it would be the same.
We'd be the same. Yeah, we'd be good.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. So
redeem this, please, Dave.
I'm Dave, and I spend most of my time helping faith, government, and business leaders work together. Focused primarily here in the Denver metro area. About 10 years ago, I had a group of pastors sitting in a room with the mayor in one of our suburbs, and we were asking him, "Hey, what's the smartest thing we could do if we're going to mobilize all of these pastors and congregations around one thing?" And he told us, if you wanted to do the best thing for our city, you should start a neighboring movement. And he had no idea the irony. He was basically telling us, you guys should do the Bible. And and it was very ironic and very convicting for all of us in the room. And it kind of just put us on this journey of going back to the basics of
what did he mean by that?
He was saying, listen, when people know their actual neighbors, there's less weight on all the systems that government leaders are trying to create for people in need. I can start a program for elderly shut-ins, or that person who's growing older and more isolated could actually be known by their neighbors. And he said this beautiful line. He said, what we're learning at the city is that relationships always trump programs.
Nice.
And when he said that, we're all sitting there going, oh my goodness.
This is government.
This is government telling a bunch of pastors, hey, you guys, this neighboring thing, it's like the answer to our city's problems. And we're sitting there going, oh crap, he's telling us to do like the most basic teaching of the Bible. And for me personally, I was doing neighboring, like I was busy doing a lot of things. I was choosing how I was loving my neighbor. I wasn't very intentional in my own neighborhood. And so that moment with him sent me and a group of my friends just on this journey of like, how do we go back to the basics? What if Jesus meant our actual neighbors too, when he said to love our neighbors? And so I just started to slow down a little bit. And I didn't start by like going and loving my neighbor. That's like crazy big picture Jesus stuff. I was just like, hey, I should
also can get you arrested for stalking.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Hi.
I was like, maybe I should learn these people's names and actually use their names when I see them.
Yeah.
You know, and just doing small things that over time have made a really, really big difference. But it was just becoming more intentional in the life of my own neighborhood and with the people who are right around me. And so my buddy and I, Jay Pathak, ended up writing a book around that. And so that kind of put us out there talking with people and basically saying, hey, if you're going to be a Christian, you should probably know your neighbor's first names. And I've been doing, that's taken up a big part of my life over the last 10 years. And then I spend some time, as you mentioned, helping government leaders partner with faith leaders around issues with the poor. And then I also like to hang out with business leaders that are believers and help them dream about how do you leverage your company for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a title, as you mentioned, but that's kind of what I spend most of my time doing. And
one of the most helpful things, going back to do you know your neighbor's name?
Yeah.
You came and spoke at Flatirons a few years ago, and we handed out these refrigerator magnets that had this checkerboard thing on it.
Yeah, the little block map.
Yeah, mine's still on my refrigerator.
So is ours.
And it's
Is
filled
it still
out.
blank?
No, it's filled up with names. A couple of them have changed out over the years. Part of it is like, okay, what's his wife's name? And then I can that just means a lot when you speak across the fence, even from a distance, and going, hey, Kevin, or whatever. But the other part is I'm like, now I know who I'm mad at.
Well, no, it's so much of this, Jim, is like having the courage to lean into mildly awkward moments with other people. Like, this is what you need to be a great neighbor. Just the willingness to lean into these mildly awkward moments. I had to look at people that I had like lived around for 3 years that I had met multiple times and say, hey, this is really embarrassing. I know I've met you 3 times, but I forgot your name. And just like that's like a moment. Or having somebody over into your home the first time, like that couple that you're like, hey, we should have them over. You've been saying that for 8 years. And you actually go, oh, I'm actually going to invite them over. These are these mildly awkward moments, but the payout on the other end is massive. Like once you learn somebody's name, they go from just being like this phase who drives the blue truck that has like the kids that like soccer to like, oh, that's Matt. Right. And it just does something inside of us. And so, yeah, that little refrigerator, our whole book is basically a refrigerator magnet, and then like 200 and other something pages. So,
it all comes down to this.
It all comes down to this.
Okay, so great story.
Okay.
So, just before everything got shut down, so my assistant, Mary, who stopped by the house to drop something off.
Right. You're dry cleaning or something, right?
No.
Oh, actual work stuff. Sorry.
No, I think probably was Mary's probably a bottle of something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
For
Yes.
my birthday.
Good. Yes.
But she brought her husband with him, and has some balance problems, and so he got out of the car and fell down in my driveway. Okay, and I look out the front door. Robin's going, he fell down, and Dallas fell down. So I ran out there and but my neighbor came over and we picked him up, and now we're friends.
That's exactly right.
So that's the key.
Yes.
You just need somebody to fall down and hit his head.
Dallas to fall down.
Quick question: do you remember your neighbor's name? The one that came over?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, good.
I don't. But we're going, hey.
Yes.
Hey.
And so then I think it's all about like taking that next step. What I've learned in my life, like taking that next step, going, it's okay to like not remember the guy's name, but to be intentional the next time you see him to go, hey man, that was amazing that you came over and helped. Remind me what your name is again. And then just doing the refrigerator thing, writing it down.
Yeah.
And so that's everything we've
My
done.
neighbor on this side, they're from Peru. So they have different kind of names.
Yes.
And so a lot of times I'll have to run in the kitchen.
Yes.
Okay, that's his name. And this is his wife's name.
Yeah.
And then over here, it's another friend. And the same way.
Yep.
And he's a cop, so I don't want to get that wrong.
For sure.
Right?
My neighbors next to me are from Laos. And so for a long time, they just have a whole community of people from Laos that they hang out with. And I was always intimidated to like go, oh, they probably don't want to hang out with me. It was through food. We ended up like, I just ended up going like, hey, like you guys are always having these parties.
Laotian food is different, Dave.
It is. Well, it's kind of Thai. The good stuff. It reminds you of Thai food.
Okay.
And their stuff is amazing. But the food thing is what broke the ice for us. And then after a number of years, I just remember thinking like, this whole time I was thinking they didn't want to hang out with us. They were thinking the exact same thing about us.
Oh, yeah.
They were thinking like, here we are displaced into this country. These people aren't going to want to spend time with us. But just taking those small steps, remembering their names, their names are harder and they don't look right phonetically. And so just remembering that ended up making a big difference.
There are no vowels.
Or if they are, you don't pronounce them or something.
Okay, so Cole, you can probably, if I were going to ask Cole for pickup lines, I bet you have like hundreds.
I don't know. I've been out the game for 10 years now. Yeah.
So this is going to be really obvious. Yeah. Give me some awkward inroad like questions to meet neighbors that have been your neighbor for 5 years and you still don't know their name. It's kind of like the guy at the gym. You go to the gym and it's like, I know that guy, and it's almost like, hey dude, right? And we're family. Yeah. After 3 years, you don't go like, hey, what's your name? Yeah. And then it's just like, dude, I've been coming here for 3 years. It's like, so yes, there's an awkward, but you just got to kind of take a breath and do it. So what, for sure. How do you breach that?
Well, I would just say too, in this moment we're in right now, in this COVID crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, I think we have opportunities to do this all over the place because we're seeing so many more people out walking around.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm seeing this in my neighborhood. I'm seeing people from 2-3 blocks away. I'm seeing them on a regular basis. And I'm just like, even from 10 feet away, I'm just going, hey, how's it going? Like, I've seen you out here a couple of days. You know, do you live in our neighborhood? What's your name? Or if it's somebody that I know I should know, you know, I just will admit it. I'll just be like, hey, listen, this is embarrassing. And then I just use it as a time to just like, you know, take the fault yourself. And then just going and writing it down is the worst though, Jim, is when you go and say, hey, this is embarrassing. I forgot your name. And you introduce, and you're like, hey, I'm Dave. And they go, I know.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah. I go to your church. Yeah. Crap. You know what my great inroad is? I have a 12-week-old puppy.
Oh yeah. That's cheating. Oh,
it's
You're
like
cheating.
It is cheating. Yeah. Everybody wants to. Yeah.
We live in a condo, and so we have people on every level, every different.
Yeah.
And we're in like North Parker. Next road up is Aurora, so we hit like Aurora. So we're like the only American people in our like row of condos. So everybody's names are different. Everybody's like cultures are different.
What do you mean by American? That's really stereotypical.
That's very well. I mean, the people below
English
us,
speaking,
primary. Yeah, I mean, the people below us are from Kenya. The people below them are from Pakistan. The people next to them are from India.
Oh, so you really were.
We're really from America. They are not. They're here.
Okay.
And so it's like we have had to like multiple times be like, okay, I forget your name, or it's like Martin below us from Nairobi. He was wearing a Kenya bracelet that we got when we were over there. And I was like, hey, are you from Kenya? Like, that's how we brought it all in. I still don't remember his wife's name. And so it's continue like, okay, I need to like, next time I see him, do that. But it's like, we'll comment. They always like walk in with cool, like types of beer or whatever. So we'll talk about that type of stuff, but finding like the surfacey level stuff and then leveraging it to be like, hey man, just one more time, remind me what your name is.
Well, here's the great news, like in our world today is, and I love that you've done global mission trips and stuff, but the neighboring stuff, you start to realize, oh my goodness, I don't have to get on a plane and go to the other side of the world. Here. I can like actually walk outside my front door. And that was like an eye opener for me of just thinking like this proximity thing, you guarantee that you're hanging out with people who think about the world differently than you. You guarantee that you're hanging out with people who have different cultural backgrounds than you do. And so I just think Jesus is smart. And I think like when he boils, by the way, that's
can I quote you on that?
Jesus
is smart.
So when he boils the entire text down to one thing, I just kept thinking to myself through all of this stuff that happened with our mayor and with this little group of pastors was what if when Jesus said, you know, love God with everything you have and love your neighbors yourself, what if he's given us a really simple strategic plan that if believers did it, it would change the world overnight. And the problem is most of us aren't doing it. And for much of my life, I wasn't doing it. Because I just kind of wanted to have this like metaphoric love for my metaphoric neighbor.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to like choose how I loved my neighbor. I wanted to do it with the people on my kids' soccer team or the person at the coffee shop. But the proximity stuff really makes a difference because it's like a discipline that introduces you to people that you would never choose to hang out with.
And we really have no excuse right now.
Yeah,
it's not, we're not really supposed to leave the neighborhood, right?
And like right now, I think there is such an opportunity for the church right now. The isolation and loneliness that is happening as a result of, depending on where you live, the stay-at-home orders or just social distancing or working from home, people aren't having face-to-face interactions at work. They're not having face-to-face interactions at school. They're not having face-to-face at church. Like right now, what we have are those people who live right around us when it comes to those interactions, those like human-to-human interactions, not Zoom calls. And so we do have this unique time I think we have this grace period to get through some of those socially awkward things and just meet the people that are around us. The key is like, how do you do it in a smart way?
Right.
And that's really the trick right now is we don't want to endanger anybody else. We don't want to endanger our own families. And so I've been hanging out with some public officials and just talking about this idea of literal neighboring and how do we combat loneliness and social isolation. There's this great quote, Karen Geisiger, she's an infectious disease epidemiologist, and she has a bunch of letters after her name.
That sounds like an easy job to get.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's a lot smarter than us, but was talking.
I hope so.
Yeah. She was on this phone call. This quote just hit me. It was just like the mayor quote. She just said, "Hey, right now," she was talking about what's happening in the COVID-19 crisis, and she was talking to Faith. Wait, right now, we don't need churches to create a bunch of new programs. What we need is for the people who attend those churches to simply be good neighbors and to do it in a careful and thoughtful manner. And it just brought me back to like this neighboring piece of like, okay, how do we do that? What are some ways that we can encourage believers to be catalysts in their neighborhood to build social connections and to combat, the loneliness that's going on as a result of all the social distancing stuff. Social distancing, by the way, horrible phrase. I've heard some people that say, you know what, I wish we would have just said physical distancing, not social distancing, because it just has these connotations that aren't
can't
great.
talk to people. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So with that, so you say like that quote, and then you say, so how do we as people like that, how do we as people that attend the church, attend a church, or a church leader, because there's people who listen all over the country, like, and you say, how do we then take care of these people? How do we then be actually good neighbors?
Yeah. So I think for us as believers, when we're thinking about our own neighbors, is having eyes to see who are some of the people that may be older and at risk. What does it look like to reach out to them on phone or email specifically and ask if they need anything at all? To reassure them.
And what does that mean? Like, hey, I'm going to King Soopers.
Yes.
Can I pick something up for you?
Hey, listen, I know this is a crazy time in our world. Is there anything that you need? I would love to help. And to reassure them, I think it's really important to say, I'll be really careful. I will wash my hands before. If I'm in any way sick, I won't do this. I'll let you know. I'll wipe down everything that I leave at
leave
your
it on
door.
your porch.
That's right. If you feel sick, just making sure. There's so much anxiety that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So just being sensitive of that with people.
Okay, that's one. Give us a couple more things we can do.
Number one, you mentioned it. When you see people outside, talk to them. Actually make it a point to go, hey, like just lean in just a little bit towards them. So just engage people when you see them outside. If that's getting their name for the first time, it's asking them how you're doing. Maybe it's just looking at them and going like, hey, what's this been like for you and for your work? Remind me, where do you work again? And like, how has this impacted that?
Yeah.
Hey, have there been any silver linings? That's one of my favorite questions. Has there been any silver linings in this that you've noticed? People always respond with that one. And so another one would be just to simply like, you can do these like little sit-ins. We're doing sit-ins. We're sitting like 10 to 12 feet apart in our neighborhood, just hanging out for an hour. Everybody brings their own chair.
Yesterday was my birthday. I had 3 guys on my back porch.
Yes.
We were on the corners.
That's
They
right.
Came in around and we're like, had an old fashioned. It was just like, happy birthday. I said, happy birthday. Yeah.
It is awkward.
It is.
Does seem a little bit awkward,
Yeah.
but it's the right thing to do right now. Better be safe than sorry, but you can still do that in your neighborhood. It's been a lifeline for a lot of us in our neighborhood, just to sit out there and to do it on a regular basis. My wife's doing like happy hour over the phone, over the Zoom, and they're all just hopping on, grabbing a drink, hanging out, touching base.
I saw 4 minivans parked across the street here, and the women were sitting in the back of the minivan, like wrapped up in a blanket, but they were like
Totally.
like reading a book club or something.
Awesome.
All right, and they had some beverage. I'm gonna say Starbucks.
Starbucks, yes, for
no
sure.
doubt.
Starbucks,
No
yeah.
doubt.
I'm not. Hey, how much time we got?
We got one more minute yet.
Okay.
One more minute.
One more minute.
One more minute.
Okay.
We haven't even got. We got to get back to the Tiger King. Go ahead.
We'll break this into
Let's do it.
podcasts.
Okay, we'll do a whole new podcast.
Hey, so you threw out an idea before we started talking
Yeah.
about these checks that everybody's going to get.
Oh yeah. So,
And I this has got me thinking, and maybe we just float it out here right now and come back and revisit it. But there's some people that are going to get these stimulus checks, $1,200 up to $4,400. I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they still have jobs.
That's right.
Like, all right, some people don't, and this is going to be a lifesaver. It's going to keep them afloat to go pay bills and catch up on food and all that kind of stuff. But some of us, we're still getting a regular paycheck, and we're still going to get a stimulus check.
That's right.
And you had a really creative idea that's going to probably have some people, because some people are going, oh, I'm going to Costco, but not for toilet paper. I'm getting the big screen, or something like that. And I guess they can do that. But you had a really creative idea.
Yeah,
Talk about
I've
it
just
real quick.
been floating this out here. This isn't fully baked yet, but I just started to think about
Nothing
my
we
own.
do around here is fully baked.
Okay, good.
Nothing.
That's good. So I think I just have been thinking I'm going to be getting this check in the mail, and I have 4 kids, and my paycheck has not been impacted yet and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but so far I've been able to get a full paycheck. But I have some friends that work in hospitality,
Yeah,
and
me too.
they are devastated.
Yeah.
And like financially, they're trying to figure out rent. We're trying to figure out all this stuff, and like this check coming in the mail is about as loosely as I will have ever held money, because I don't feel like I'm earning it. Like it's just coming in the mail. It's just or into my direct deposit. And I just started thinking, like, what if churches could cast a vision and give all of us an opportunity to do some redistribution here of taking this money that's just being thrown to everybody and to redistribute it to people who are really in need? And is there a way? And so like, I was thinking, like, could we figure out like a movement of local churches who just kind of do a tithe 50 thing where you just give your people the opportunity to tithe 50% of their stimulus
Into
check
a special.
into a fund at the church, that the church could then say, all right, we're going to use this and go and identify who are the other people in our body who are struggling, who have been impacted, and actually be able to go and to bless them and to give them a lifeline to get through the next however long the season lasts. And so I want to talk about this more with you, Jim, and just kind of dream about what could we do around these lines. And one of the things I love about Flatirons is a lot of people get exposed to what you're up to. And so I would hope that it would become one of those best practices that people do. So we got like a week and a half to figure this all out.
I love the idea. And so I commit to, we'll figure it out.
Don't commit to anything. Yeah. I mean,
I'll just commit you to tithe 60%.
perfect. Yeah.
All right.
And I
And
commit,
Cole, I'll take yours too.
Yeah,
I
that's
commit
fair.
you to
Fair.
70. So yeah.
All
That's
right.
perfect.
All right. That's fair. But what I guess what I'm getting at is we got to think different.
For
And we got to think creative, and we got to think maybe even intrusive and inconvenient. Because, I mean, you're a follower of Jesus. What you do basically is you say, hey, it's going to cost me something,
Yeah.
right? Everything from, hey, I'm laying down my life, which means I'm laying down my priorities. I'm laying down some of my wants and needs for something greater, maybe for the people that Jesus really cares about.
That's right.
And again, I think sometimes when we just say, okay, I do online giving and it just goes to my church, I don't even think about it anymore. This is a chance for us to think about something
That's right.
that could really, this past weekend I talked about the very first followers of Jesus got hauled into court for turning the world upside down. That's a great accusation.
That's right.
That's what I signed up for. Okay. So we're on to something. I'd love to talk more
Well,
about
and
that.
I think this too, and with the neighboring stuff, Jesus was always getting accused. Like Jesus is always making the religious people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because of the people he's hanging out with.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a model for us as believers. We need to think like, are we, if you're like hanging out with people that make the religious people uncomfortable, maybe you're like in the bullseye. Maybe you're like in the sweet spot.
Right. Right. We actually, on our retreat the other day, we came up with one of our staff values.
Yeah.
And it was, we're not afraid to piss off religious people.
Oh, I'm not surprised by this one bit.
Yeah. And it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It might get you crucified, but some things are worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. We're going to pick this up on part 2. But
Great.
Thanks for getting us thinking in a different way.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Bye.